What's cracking, everybody? Benji Bruce here, and we are going to get going for today. Let's see who's hopping on. Today, we're going to talk about just building systems in your business. This is one of the pieces of advice that I've always heard about. Like, as you're growing your business, you're building your business, you're reading books, you're watching videos, people are constantly telling you build systems, create systems in your business. But it's one of the things that I didn't actually do for the longest time until I just got frustrated. I got frustrated at the fact that I would wake up every day asking myself, how the hell do I get business? And that's what would happen like on a daily basis. And so I started building systems in the business. And this is what we're going to talk about today, just how to build your own systems. It's essentially two things. You either buy or you build a system. So it's either one of those. What's up, everybody? Everybody's hopping on. Cool. So we're going to talk about just building out your own systems. And once you kind of get this thinking down, you can build systems in any business you're building, whether you're trying to, like, in terms of what I was doing with the entertainment, the speaking, getting on stages, or whether it's the online brand, you're building a personal brand. You got to build systems around everything because that's how you get business. You should not be waking up on a daily basis asking yourself, well, what do I do to get business today? You shouldn't be asking yourself that. You should know exactly what you need to do to get business. So that's what I really want to go over today. All right, cool. So everyone's hopping on. All right. What's up, everybody? So first thing I want to mention is, like I said earlier, you can either buy or you can build a system. This is like when you hear about the franchises, right? So you're going to McDonald's, you can either buy a McDonald's franchise or you can build your own McDonald's business, your own burger business from scratch. If you build it from scratch, it's going to take you a lot of time. If you buy a franchise, then you instantly have all the systems in place and you can just get going and start generating revenue. It's just a matter of how long you want it to take. So it's like if everyone bought a McDonald's franchise, there'd be no Burger King, In-N-Out Burger, no Wendy's and all that, right? So obviously they didn't buy a McDonald's franchise. They built their own, and it took them a while. I'm sure they were building it at the same time as McDonald's was building it, but it still took them a while. It's easier to just buy a system instead of building your own. And so this is why everyone keeps saying, like, yeah, just have the mentors, all that sort of stuff. But you have to understand that if you're waking up every day wondering what steps to take, it's just because you don't have your systems in place. You should not be waking up every day asking yourself, how do I generate leads? How do I convert those leads into sales? You shouldn't be asking yourself those questions. Those are beginner questions. Those are questions that people ask themselves when they're just starting their business and they're wondering, like, what the hell do I do, right? So that's you shouldn't just be asking yourself that. And there's essentially three phases, 3 levels of thinking that you're going to go through to build your systems, right? So understand the purpose of systems is predictable results, right? So when you build a system, it's literally you say, okay, step 1 all the way to step 100, and then poof, this result ends up because you completed all the steps. Once you complete all the steps, you have the end result. The purpose of the system is to have predictable results. That's why you shouldn't be waking up every day asking yourself, what do I do? How do I generate sales? How do I get leads? You shouldn't be asking that because you built out a systematic process to do that. And so what you're ultimately thinking about doing is, how do you remove yourself from the business, right? And this is one of the things where I don't remember where I first heard it, somewhere in a book for sure. I was reading a book and it was like, basically you want to remove yourself from your business. And I thought, what? Why would I remove myself from my business? That's stupid. And then after a while, you start to think about it. You're like, okay, ultimately you want to get to a point where you can remove yourself if you want, but you don't have to. Your business is essentially comprised of all these steps that anyone can execute and accomplish a similar result. That's how you scale. And so you're always thinking in terms of, how do I remove myself? That's literally from the get-go. You're like, all right, I got to build systems so I can remove myself from this task or these tasks. And that's how you end up into the category of only doing what you love, right? In the beginning, like I said, doing what you love is the most damaging success advice ever. But in the beginning, because in the beginning, you're simply doing whatever you have to get to the point where you can do whatever you love. And so in the beginning, you're building out these systems in terms of everything that you don't want to do. You build out all these systems. That way you can eventually hire someone and say, hey, here's a checklist, here's a document so you can do this thing. If you don't have the systems, you'll simply struggle in terms of building your business. So here's the thinking behind everything. What's up, Mar? What's up, everybody? Dean, Ari, Nick, everybody? All right, cool. So basically, I was just like everyone else in the beginning. My whole path was, in the beginning, I was confused as all hell. Like I'm trying to get hired as an entertainer, as a speaker. And of course, everybody and their mama was saying, look, the way you get business is through referrals. It's word of mouth. That's what it is. Right. And so I was like, all right, cool, referrals. Sure, nobody's going to tell me how to get that first gig, but sure, referrals, right? So I'm out there trying to get referrals. No idea what the hell I'm doing, right? And then like everybody else, I'm looking for an agent who's going to book me gigs. I'm looking for speaker bureaus who are going to book me gigs. I'm looking for people who are going to build my business for me. I was the same as everybody else in the beginning. And it wasn't really until I saw my friend, the magician friend, where he opened up a phone book, called a random number out of the phone book, and he started just doing that. After about 10, 11 times, he actually got a gig from that little thing. And I was like, that's kind of impressive. And so it wasn't until that when I really started thinking like, okay, there are obviously different methods to actually get myself booked on stages. And so I really started digging deep into different systems in terms of actually getting on stages. And that's essentially, that's kind of what happened. Eventually, I kind of just say, let me cold call, let me cold email. I tried different methods. Eventually, I figured it out. And here's the thinking process behind the entire system building process. Step number one, the first thing that you're doing, it's what I call the spaghetti start. This is the spaghetti phase. So you've heard of the whole saying of you throw spaghetti against the wall and just see what sticks. You just throw everything against the wall, you see what sticks. That's what you're doing in the beginning. In the beginning, you have no idea what works. You're like, I don't know what leads to actually go after. I don't know who hires me. I don't know who buys my program. You don't know a damn thing in the beginning. You think you do, but you don't. And so in the beginning, you do the spaghetti start. You're just like, all right, here's all my ideas. And you just throw them at the window and just see what sticks. So that's literally what you're doing in the very beginning. So like in the beginning, I cold called in the beginning because, like I said, my friend, he cold called and hella impressive. I'm like, damn, man, what the hell? So I started cold calling in the beginning, and I found out that wasn't really effective for me. So I'm cold calling. I'm missing email addresses. Like people are on the phone like, yeah, send me your info. And then I'd write down their email, but I would confuse like an M for an N. I'd confuse a B for a D and then bounce back and all sorts of stuff. Then all of a sudden I'm calling. I have to leave voicemails and I forget who I left a voicemail for. I forget how to follow up with them. Right. So in the beginning, I had no system. I had no CRM, no nothing set up. I just picked up the freaking phone. And I just start calling people. I'm just like, all right, maybe they have an event. So I just start calling people. Right. Like I said, I didn't have anything down. It was just throwing spaghetti against the wall. Eventually, I say, you know what? This cold calling stuff is stupid. So then I switched to cold emailing. So the cold email was more effective, more efficient. I could send out more emails. It was more strategic for me and everything. So I switched to the cold email process. And this is when I really, really started doing my spaghetti start, when I just start throwing a ton of stuff against the wall. So at first, it's kind of like, I was testing out different subject lines. So when you send a cold email out, no matter what you say in the email, you can be like, hey, I'm going to give you $1 million if you respond to this. It doesn't matter what you say in the email. If they don't open up your email, it's kind of like you just sent it for no reason. So I started out with the subject line. I said, okay, well, what's a subject line that I can use to get hired as an entertainer? So I tested out multiple different subject lines, like what was it? I can't remember exactly, but I know I tested out mentalist. I just used the word mentalist in the subject line. I used the word corporate illusionist. I used corporate entertainer. I used motivational speaker. What else did I use? Let's see. I tried a ton of different things. I used their name if I could find their name. I used a ton of different things. And eventually I settled on the one that actually works. The one that works was the name of their event. And so that was the best one. And so all of that, it was just because of the spaghetti start. I'm just like, let me just test a bunch of different stuff, right? So that's what would happen. I did the same with actually contacting the events. In the beginning, I was like everybody else. I didn't sound in demand in my emails, nothing like that. In fact, I sound like a scrub, just like everybody else, right? So I sound like a scrub in my emails. So I'm just sending out all these emails. And what I was really doing when I was sending out the emails is I was essentially looking to see like, all right, if someone booked me or if someone responded, in the beginning, it was more like who responded to me because I wasn't getting booked at the time, right? I didn't have the process down. In the beginning, it was like, who's responding to the emails? When they responded, I would look to see what did I say in that email. So I would go through whoever responded. I'm like, all right, what did I say again? And I reread the entire thing and I would try to duplicate that the next time around. And eventually when someone booked me, I looked through everything. I looked through, all right, where did I find the lead? Like, what did I type into Google, or how did I find the lead? I looked at the event. I'm like, all right, how many people are there? I looked at everything about this event. Who exactly did I talk to? And did they send me off to somebody else? What was the email subject line? What did I say in the email? What exactly was my website like? Did they say something to me about how they like the reviews or something like that? So I paid really close attention to what people were saying to me when I actually got a sale, like when I actually got business. And that's what you're doing in the beginning. In the beginning, you literally have no idea. This is why I tell like a ton of people when they're cold emailing, in the beginning, you're cold emailing a bunch of people. You have an idea of who your ideal client is, your lead. You have an idea of it, but you don't really know. Like, there's no way to actually know until you actually get the sale. And so that's what I was doing, like, in the beginning. I was testing a ton of different stuff. In the beginning, I didn't have any systems to actually test. So I was even doing the testing wrong. My testing wasn't the way you do now with all these systems, and it tells you, all right, 33% clicked on this, 72% clicked. I didn't do any of that. All I did was I was testing out different stuff. When someone booked me, I manually went back and just looked at everything. I just said, okay. And I did that with every single person who booked me, every single one. And I tried to dissect, like, what am I saying in the emails, and what did they say back? That's how I knew, like, people would say things in terms of, oh yeah, the reviews is what really got me. Like the amount of reviews that you had, that's what really got me. And that's when I started featuring reviews and things like that, right? So little things like that is what you're doing in the beginning. In the beginning, all you're really trying to do is duplicate your success. So you're saying, here's a bunch of different things. Here's a bunch of different ideas. All these gurus, mentors, books, programs, all this stuff keeps saying you do referrals, you do cold email, you do cold calling, you do content, you do Twitter, you do Facebook, you do Google. I'm gonna try all of them, right? So that's literally what you're doing in the beginning. I tried crashing events in the beginning. That actually worked really well. So crashing events, what I would do is there's obviously a ton of hotels, and I was in the Springs, so there wasn't a ton of hotels in the Springs, in Colorado Springs. So I would just go to an event. I would just go to a hotel, walk right into an event as if I'm supposed to be there, and I would start performing for people who were there. After about 15 minutes of performing, I would actually talk to the person who was in charge of the event, and I try to get them to hire me right then and there, or at least get their contact information for next time, right? So I was doing that. That actually worked out really well. And so it was a combination of that with cold emailing. And I was thinking, like, okay, cool. So I found out two really, really good methods that worked for me to actually get myself hired. And like I said, all you're doing in the beginning is you're trying to duplicate your success. So when something happens, you just repeat it. You're trying to repeat it, right? Because in the beginning, you don't actually know what caused that success to happen. You have an idea. You're thinking, okay, I sold this product, or I got someone to hire me. I have an idea of why they bought, but you don't actually know in the beginning. You're just guessing. So phase one is the spaghetti phase. That's the spaghetti start. You just throw everything at the wall, see what sticks. The next phase. Oh, and I wanted to mention this also with building the online brand as well. It's like building the online brand. My whole spaghetti start, I was doing everything. I was creating content. I was writing emails. I was doing webinars, sales videos. I emailed weekly. Then I emailed daily. So I was testing out a ton of different ways to actually sell and build the online brand. I didn't actually know what worked. I didn't know how much content I should create. I didn't know how many times I should send an email to a list. I didn't know what kinds of emails I should send. I didn't know if I should be creating webinars, if I should be creating sales videos. I just had no idea. I was just like, let me just try everything. Let's just see what works. And I did the same thing with online brand. It was a lot easier with online brand because I had the systems like the autoresponder that would tell me X number of people open the emails, X number of people, all this sort of stuff, right? So building the online brand, I was testing out different stuff. And whenever someone bought anything from me, like anything, whether it was a $7 book or a $2,000 program, whenever someone bought anything, I would literally look to see what emails did they open. I would look to see how long were they on my list. I would look to see, did we communicate at all? Did they ever message me and I replied back, like with a website review for them or something? Like, I was looking at the entire thing. In the beginning, I was using a software called Aweber. Eventually, when I switched to Active Campaign, it was a million times better because Active Campaign, it really tracks stuff. So like I know everything you guys are doing, like everything you're doing with Active Campaign. So it's insane in terms of the level of tracking. But whenever someone would buy, I would always go back into Active Campaign and I would literally look through it. I would see like, okay, how long have they been on the list? I mean, what did they actually look at? What did they read? And what did they ignore? And I would do the whole thing. When people would sign up to, let's say my $2,000 program, if someone found out about me yesterday and they sign up to the $2,000 program within 7 days, I would literally call that person up. The reason I would call them up is because I wanted to know, why did that person buy so fast? I'm thinking like, all right, they didn't know me. They just found out about me from a Facebook ad. And next thing I know, they just spent $2,000 just instantly. They have no idea who I am. And I'm thinking like, why did they buy so fast? So I would call them up and I ask them questions. Some people didn't answer just because they're probably thinking they're going to get upsold or something. But I was just trying to figure out like, why do people buy so fast? Because I want to duplicate that. If I can get someone to sign up and buy a program in 1 or 2 days and pay $2,000 in 1 or 2 days from signing up, oh man, it's freaking 9 figures every day. That's what I was trying to look at with the online brand. And so in the beginning, your thinking is also spaghettified. And what I mean by that is your thinking is everywhere. It's just literally everywhere. Your thinking is very cluttered in the beginning. So you're not really sure what you should be doing. You're asking yourself, should I create content? Should I do this cold email and stuff people are talking about? Should I build an Instagram following? I mean, should I? So your thinking is all over the place. You're not sure what it is you do. You're not sure how to convert the leads. Your thinking is just spaghettified. It's horrible thinking in the beginning. And you even have a lot of self-doubt. Like you're wondering, like, does this even work? Right? So you're trying a lot of things. You're like, does this thing even work? I've been doing this for a couple hours now. And so far I don't have $1 million. So I don't know why it's not working. So in the beginning, your thinking is very spaghettified. All right. Now, eventually you get to the second phase. The second phase is what I call the sponge phase. Now, it's not because you're absorbing stuff. It's because you're letting things go. So in the sponge, you're basically, you're just squeezing that sponge and you're getting rid of everything that's useless in your business and you're keeping what's useful. There's this quote from Bruce Lee where Bruce Lee says, absorb what is useful, reject what is useless, add what is essentially your own. That's the sponge phase. The sponge phase is first, you tried everything. You tried webinars, sales videos, promo emails, cold email, cold calling. You tried everything in the beginning. Now you're getting rid of a lot of things and you're just keeping what's useful. So that's essentially what you're doing in the sponge phase. It's not really what you add to a system. It's what you take away that makes that system perfect. And so when most people, their systems are like all over the place, just scattered. You want your system to be just like a straight line. So that's what you're doing. You're thinking in terms of like, how do I get rid of all the useless stuff? So in the beginning, it's just everywhere. You're like, all right, let me get rid of this. Let me get rid of that. Get rid of this. Get rid of that. Get rid of this. Get rid of that. So that's what you're doing in terms of the whole sponge phase. And so this is where like I started changing my emails in terms of how I was responding in the emails, where I started getting rid of all the headlines that didn't work. And I started using, or the subject lines, I started using the right subject lines. This is when I got more specific on the email templates that I was using. So I said, okay, these email templates work best. So I'm only going to use these. I'm no longer going to test a million different email ones. So I started getting very specific about which ones I was using. This is when I added a lead score to my CRM. So like the lead score would tell me spend more time on these people and less time on these people. And so you're essentially just getting more and more detailed about how you're getting business. This is when you start paying for the tools in your business. So like in the beginning, I would use a free CRM and also a spreadsheet. I didn't really use a spreadsheet that long because I realized like, oh, dang it, this spreadsheet can't keep up. This spreadsheet can't keep up with me. Shoot. So eventually I started using a free CRM, Insightly, and then I went from Insightly and I paid for a real CRM. Well, Insightly is a real CRM, but I stepped up my game to base CRM. So this is when you start paying for actual tools, because in the beginning, in the spaghettified phase, you have all this self-doubt and you're not even sure, like, is this stuff going to work or what? Eventually, when you start to get things that kind of work, you're in the sponge phase and you start to get rid of all the useless things. Now you're getting more confident about generating sales. And because you're more confident, you're much more willing to actually pay for things. And the same happened with the online brand. The online brand, same thing. In the online brand, I use everything that I could for free. So, for example, a shopping cart. I knew you could get a shopping cart. I knew I should get a shopping cart, but I didn't. I use PayPal. I mean, PayPal is free, so I'm like, all right, let me just put a PayPal button on my website. Bam, that's it, right? So I did that in the beginning. That was in the spaghetti phase when I'm just testing everything out. Then I'm in the sponge phase where I'm getting rid of all the useless things, keeping what's useful. So in the sponge phase, I started paying for stuff. That's when I paid for Samcart, the shopping cart that I use. So I started paying for that. Start paying for other stuff, right? So that's when you know you're in the sponge phase, when you're getting a little bit more confident about how you generate some sales. And in terms of like building the online brand, the sponge phase, it's one of those phases where you get so focused that you even ignore things that work. And what I mean by that is you're removing the things that you don't want to do in your specific business. So for example, webinars. If you're building an online business, webinars absolutely positively do work. They do generate sales. But I knew that I didn't want to do webinars. That's not how I generated the sales. So I stopped doing the webinars. Like I was trying everything. Webinars, pro email sales videos. I tried a ton of different stuff. And I said to myself, okay, forget the webinars. Let me just stop doing these. I don't really want to get good at those. And then I start getting rid of stuff. So that's what's happening. It's not that things don't work. It's just that you're getting more focused on what actually works for your specific business. So it's like cold calling, same thing. Cold calling, it works, but that was a thing that I just got rid of in my business. And so that's what you're thinking about in this sponge phase. It's like, what do I get rid of? And just recently, for example, like with Speaking Lifestyle, the business Speaking Lifestyle, I switched from doing pre-made videos to where you guys saw the videos that I would make with a DSLR camera or my phone. They would be edited. I switched from doing those to just doing the live videos on a daily basis. The reason is because it allows me to spend more time on the Benji Bruce brand and getting $30,000 workshops and $50,000 workshops. So I can spend more time on that stuff, and I can spend less time actually editing videos and even sending it to an editor and filming the videos and all that sort of stuff. So it's just a matter of you're getting rid of things and you're getting more detailed about what it is you really need to do to generate sales. So in this phase, you're actually generating sales, but it's kind of like you're just trying to remove all the things that are getting in the way of generating sales. So that's really what you're doing in this phase. This is the phase where you also remove unnecessary thinking. So any thoughts that you have that are useless, you get rid of them. So this is why I keep saying to people, stop trying to build your social media following and start building revenue. Start generating revenue in your business. Your business is not about a social media following. It is about generating revenue. So when you get to this phase, you start to remove stupid thoughts like, I got to build my Instagram following. You start removing stupid thoughts like that. And then you're like, all right, I got to generate some more damn money, right? And so you start to gain more thoughts like that. Little things like, oh, will people get mad if I email on a daily basis? You start to remove stupid thoughts like that. Like I thought the same thing at the time. I thought, you know what? I think I was emailing once a week, and then I stepped my game up. I stepped it up like big time to 2 times a week. I stepped it up in terms of the emails. I was like, oh, 2 times a week? I don't know. People may get offended. I might be emailing a little bit too much here. I stepped it up to 2 times a week. Then I looked at someone else's business who was doing 9 figures, and I said, damn, they're emailing every single day. What the hell? So I switched to every single day. So you're removing your useless thoughts of thoughts like, oh, people are going to get mad if I email. People are going to get mad if I follow up too much. People are going to get mad if I hold a video and I start recording testimonials of them. They're going to get mad. And so you start removing useless thoughts like that. That's when you're in this sponge phase. This is also the phase when you're really thinking about how to remove yourself and how to really hire people. This is when you really start thinking about those. Then the last phase that you have to get to, this phase is a phase that I call God mode. So phase 1, spaghetti phase, you're just throwing throwing stuff at the wall, seeing what sticks. Phase 2 is the sponge phase, when you just get rid of, you wring out all the useless stuff and you just keep what's useful. The third phase and the final phase of your systems is God mode. That's right. God mode. This is where you see everything. You see everything. You see the strategy. You see the details. You see everything in this phase. This is the phase that you have to get to in your business. And this is the phase where you can tell who's actually in this phase in their business by asking them questions about how they get business. This is why I'm able to tell when someone has no idea how to get business. Because if you ask someone, how do you actually generate business? And they tell you it's through word of mouth and referrals, you can almost guarantee they have no idea how to get business. Someone who actually gets business can say, oh, well, what we do is we actually do a Facebook ad to this, to this, to that. And then if they don't join the Facebook ad, then we retarget them with this. And then if they buy this and they upsell to this, and if they don't buy that, we downsell to them. They can describe in detail everything. And so this is the phase when you really start to see the details of your business. And this is the phase where you can just throw a boatload of money into your business. So in the beginning, because you're like spaghettified and you're kind of wondering like what the hell actually works. Like you're hesitant to spend money. You're hesitant to spend money on advertising, on buying stuff, anything. You're just hesitant because you don't know what works. Eventually you get to God mode status. This is when you're like, all right, I know what works. I can describe in detail what works. I can see the details of everything. I can see the big picture of everything at the same time, the big picture and the details at the same time. And this is when you get way more confident. And now you're just like, all right, let's just throw in $500 a day into ads, $1,000 a day into ads. Let's just keep throwing money every single day into ads. All right. So you just get very, very confident because you know it works. And so that's why I call it God mode, right? This is when you start to get so detailed that only the people who ask you the right questions can know the level of detail that you think at. This is why I tell people I don't mind revealing so much in terms of helping other people get on stages, because I know they cannot get the details unless they join my program. And I'm talking about little details like copying and pasting. Like when I would find events, right? I'm trying to find events and I'm Googling and all this stuff. Little things like knowing how to copy and paste really fast, that's what allows you to actually find more events and just contact more events in general. So I would do things like Command C on the keyboard here. So you can do Command C, that's copy, and then Command V is paste. So little things like that. And then I would split the screen on the computer. So the computer has a whole screen of the browser, and I would split the browser. So this half would have the CRM, this half would have the Google search. And instead of me like flipping through, I could just easily, bam, copy, bam, paste, bam, copy, bam, paste. And I could easily do that. Little things like that. And like Elio actually inside of our program came up with a really smart method in terms of, he said, buy one of those gamer mouses. Like, you just got like a mouse, right? So the gamer mouses, they have more than 2 buttons on a mouse. So what you can do on a gamer mouse is you can actually program one of the buttons to literally be like a copy and paste type button. So instead of you like doing a ton of stuff, you right clicking on stuff, you just scroll, bam, and it's just like instant. So you're just like, and your thumb just hits it real quick, boom, and then boom, boom. And so little things like that, that's when you get into God mode. That's when you're just detailed as all hell, right? And this is like, it's like I said, you can easily tell who knows their stuff by going into detail about what they know. And this is like what they do at Google. So if you want to get hired by Google or someone like Elon Musk at Tesla or SpaceX or whatever, what they do to you is they'll ask you simple questions in the beginning. What's a search engine? So they'll do things like that. Then they start to get more and more detailed about the programming and all that sort of stuff. So detailed to a point where you can't answer the questions anymore. And they look to see at what level of detail do you fall off. So let's say there's 10 levels of detail. Number 1 is your basic, like you barely know what a search engine is. And level 10 is, I don't even know what level 10 is. I'm not that that advanced with Google stuff. But let's say level 10, it's so ridiculous that even AI can't keep up, right? So what they do is they ask you all these questions. Then if they see you drop off here, you're like, okay, we don't really want this person. But let's say they ask you a ton of questions and you drop off all the way over here. They're like, damn, all right, this person is someone we got to hire. And so that's kind of how you know whether or not someone knows their stuff. And this is like when I tell all the speakers inside of our program in terms of talking in demand. So eventually you get to a point where you know how to have email conversations or phone conversations where you sound in demand like all hell. I mean, it's like you're doing the choosing in terms of actually finding and contacting events. This is when I got to the point where it's just like you sound in demand. And this is the part that's really hard for a lot of people to get to. So let's see, Celso said, I think I said that right. Celso said, what if you're trying to reach local gigs? How do you go about that? Which places you think are good? It's the same as anything else. Doesn't matter if it's local, international, doesn't matter where it is, when it is, just doesn't matter. You simply have the same process. We talked about that a lot. Maybe I'll get back to that question when I'm done with this, with God mode, appropriately titled. But basically, God mode is like you're literally detailed as all hell. And so, so like I say, you know that you've reached this mode when you can describe all the details of your business. Like, for example, with building the online brands, like getting hired as an entertainer and speaker, I was able to get to that mode eventually. And then all of a sudden building the online brand, there's different portions of this mode, right? So let's say, actually, online brand is perfect. I call it, you can get into God mode with creating content. You can get into God mode with sales funnels, with actually generating sales. You can get into God mode with all sorts of different aspects of your business, right? So, for example, content, it'll be so easy for you to do that you just naturally know you're in God mode, right? I just like saying that, God mode. But it's like when you create content, for example, Facebook Live, right? So what I do with the Facebook Live is really simple. When I wake up, do my boxing thing in the morning, just whoop some ass. And then all of a sudden I take this, it's actually behind the camera. I take this monopod. I put my phone on the monopod. I take a picture for the thumbnail. I edit the thumbnail real quick. And then bam, I'm ready to go for the Facebook Live. I do the Facebook Live just like how we're doing right now. As soon as I'm done with the Facebook Live, I upload that thumbnail to the video. I take the bullet points that I have. I copy and paste the bullet points into the description, and then I upload it to YouTube, the video YouTube. I copy and paste that into YouTube, and then I do the same with the blog. Bam, bam, bam. And it's just like instant. I can describe it all in detail. I can go into insane detail if I want. That's how you know when you're in God mode, right? And you want to get to God mode with your sales process. So you want to be able to describe in detail how someone finds you all the way to the point where they buy from you. You should be able to say, all right, here's our Facebook ad, or here's our YouTube ad. Here's our ad. Here's literally what it says. All right. After they sign up, they see this. After they see this, they go through this sequence. After that, they do this. After that, this. And so you should be able to get to that point. And this is when you get into the God mode thinking. Your thoughts become very different. This is when you see the theory and you see the strategy, or you see the theory and the details at the same time. The theory and the tactics, the strategy and the tactics. You see them at the same time. Like I said, you see the big picture, and then at the same time, you see the details. So this is where a lot of people get confused in terms of, I already know that, right? So people keep saying, I already know that. And when people do that, what they're really saying is, I know the strategy. I see the big picture. That's what they're saying. They don't actually know the details, which is why they're not getting results. That's why they're absolutely confused. They're like, I got a sales funnel in place. For some reason, I'm not generating any sales. What the hell? And it's because they don't have the details. They're not in God mode yet. They think they are, but they're not there yet. And so that's why I keep telling people the whole I know this, it doesn't matter. You can say you know all you want until you actually start doing it. It doesn't matter. It's like someone can say, I already know I should create Facebook ads. Yeah. But are you spending any money on Facebook ads? Like, how long have you known about Facebook ads to you actually spending money on Facebook ads? And so that's the difference, right? And so when you get into this level of thinking, what happens is you essentially become obsessed. This is when obsession kicks in. your thoughts just naturally start to think more detailed. You're always thinking in terms of how can you improve? How can you get better? And this is when you know you're at that level where it's like, all right, how do I make this process better? How do I make the system better? And like I said earlier, in terms of generating a sale for a program, let's say it normally takes 90 days for someone to buy, and you're thinking in terms of how do I get someone to buy in 1 day? Like that's what you're thinking, right? You're thinking in terms of details like that. In order to get to this phase, you have to gain knowledge. Throughout the entire time, gain knowledge. It's all about information in the beginning. In the beginning, maybe you can't afford to buy a program or pay a coach or whatever. So knowledge, information, books, that's going to allow you to be your own coach. Of course, it's going to take a lot of time. Hands down, it's going to take a lot of time. No doubt about it. If you can't pay for a program or buy a coach, it will literally take you a minimum of 10 years. Guaranteed. It's why you keep hearing that saying of, it took me 10 years to become an overnight success, because it is very, very true. And so in the beginning, you have to gain knowledge so you can see what to fix, right? You have to do that. Otherwise, you simply just can't see anything. This is why I keep telling people, read. Just read. Keep reading stuff until a point where it becomes so repetitive where you read something, you're like, damn it, I already know this crap. What the hell? Like, you should get to a point where reading marketing books by the biggest marketing gurus should just be it should be basic information to you. Like, you feel like it's basic. Where other people, they hear about it, they're like, oh, damn, drop. Oh my goodness, that's amazing. You're like, psh, that's basic information. And so that's when you're God mode, right? You're God mode. You're like, dude, I can see the whole thing. And so, you have to gain a lot of knowledge. What you're essentially doing is, obviously, like in the beginning, you're modeling people. So in the beginning, you're looking at what are successful people doing? Like, what are they doing differently than me? This is kind of dangerous to do because you can't see what they're really doing. Like, you just can't see it. You can see simple stuff. Like, you can see, oh, he's creating content. You can see little things like that. What you can't see are the phone sales that a person's operating in. You can't see what they're saying on the phone. You can't see how they operate their CRM. You can't see a lot of details when you're trying to model someone. And so this is why, like, you go from modeling to a point where you're implementing, and then to a point where you're God mode, and it's like other people are modeling you and copying you in God mode. You got to get to God mode as soon as possible. And the most important part about God mode is you have to keep your systems open. So you can't get to the point where you're like, all right, this thing works, and then that's that. You have to get to a point where you leave your system open a little bit for change, and you don't keep changing it. So it's not like a new shiny object. You're like, oh, snaps, a new autoresponder. Let's switch to that one. You're not doing that. Instead, you're aware. Like, let's say a new autoresponder pops up. Like, okay, this new autoresponder, how big of a difference is it with the one that I'm currently using? Is it like a huge gap in terms of this autoresponder is like, has virtual reality built in, AI built in, and I push a button and it finds leads for me and sells those leads for me with a chat bot. And it's like, if it's that big of a difference, yeah, you switch. But if it's a small difference, you just think, it's just another autoresponder that other people are going to get the shiny object syndrome from, and I'm going to actually build my business. So you have to leave it open. If you don't leave your business open a little bit, you essentially have what's called the innovator's dilemma. The innovator's dilemma, if you haven't read that book, it's a great book. Basically, what makes you successful is the same thing that causes your downfall. And the reason is because you start doing things that make you successful. You're like, okay, here's our system. Here's our process. We built this whole thing out. We know this is what generates the money in our business. We know this thing works. So when someone comes along and they say, hey, I've got a new idea. What do you think about that? You're like, no. Don't talk to me. Don't talk to me. This is the process. This is what works. I don't want to hear what you think works. We know this works. And this is what happened to Blockbuster and all the Sears and all the companies, right? what happened was they became successful one way. They saw another way of doing things and they ignored it. Blockbuster had a chance to buy Netflix. They didn't. They literally thought like, well, people actually like driving and coming into Blockbuster. It's like an experience. They like kind of looking around for movies. What, sitting at home ordering on their TV? What? Nobody's going to do that. And then Blockbuster is non-existent right now. So if you don't leave your system open, then you are subject to getting destroyed, absolutely destroyed by any competitors coming into the space. And so that's why you really, really have to leave it open just a little bit. I mean, just a little bit. Like, it's really hard. Actually, Walmart is actually a really good example in terms of leaving it open a little bit. For the longest time, I thought Walmart is going to, like, hands down, their downfall is coming soon. After Amazon does their thing, their downfall is coming soon. But Walmart actually starts changing little by little. I mean, not as fast as Amazon can, but they're changing. And so, like, just recently, Walmart installed their, like, self-checkout for everybody. So initially, the self-checkout could be, I think, like, up to 20 items or something. Now you can bring a whole damn cart to the self-checkout, and they have, like, I mean, it's like about, I don't know, 40 of them, or maybe not that many, maybe 30 of them that you can go up to. And that way you don't have to wait in these long ass lines and stuff, right? So Walmart is actually trying to think of ways to change and not get destroyed by Amazon because they left their systems open a little bit. So they have their process, but they're like, all right, we're willing to change, right? That's what you really have to do. Ultimately, you're thinking in terms of how do I create like how do I create documents and checklists? That's kind of what you're doing when you're creating systems. You in the beginning, it's the spaghetti phase. You're like, let me just throw everything against the wall, see what sticks. You're like, okay, this works. Okay, cool. Then you get into the sponge phase. You're like, all right, let me get rid of this stuff. I'm not going to do the webinars. I'm only going to send out emails. I'm not going to do this. I'm only going to do this. You get into the sponge phase where you start removing a lot of things, even things at work. You just remove a lot of things. Then you get to a point where you're focused on one thing. You're like, all right, the one thing is going to be emails or something like that. It's one thing. I'm going to send out emails. It's going to generate the sales. How do I get to a point where I'm God mode in emails? To a point where I send out an email and I make $1 billion instantly, right? You're like, how do I get to God mode status? And so that's when you get to that level, to the point of mastery. And so once you get to that level, you have all these checklists. You're like, okay, I know it works like this. So step 1, you do this. Step 2, you do this. Step 3, this. And you have a checklist. That's essentially how you get to, how you build systems in your business. So you either build the system or you buy the system. Building a system, I'm telling you, it takes a long ass time. No one ever thinks it takes a long time until it takes you 10 years. You're like, damn it, why not just buy the damn thing, right? And so no one ever thinks it's going to take them a long time. But it's always best to actually to just buy a system if you can. So let's see what are some of the questions here. All right. So you said, what if you're trying to reach out to local gigs? How do you go about that? All right. Which places do you think are good? Yeah. So once again, the local gigs is the same as any other gig. All you're doing is you build, once again, systems. You build a system for finding events. So you have all these hashtags and keywords that you use to go into Google to find an event. You copy paste that into Google. Then you put those events into your CRM. You contact them through the whole phase. The same thing, whether it's a local event, no matter how big or small the event is, it's the same thing over and over. You build the system. The system goes, what's the system I use for finding events? AKA all these hashtags and keywords in a document. You have all that. So now you no longer need to wake up saying, how do I find events? You know how you find events because you built a system. You built a document that has all these hashtags and keywords with your system. After that, you build your system in terms of contacting those events. So now this is where I show the pipeline phase, where you essentially say, all right, I'm going to send out email number 1. If they don't respond to it, I'm going to send out a follow-up like this. If they do, I'm going to send out a pitch like this. If they don't respond to that, I'm going to send a follow-up like this and a follow-up like this. And you have this whole process of how you contact them. You have your sales cadence in terms of day 1, I'm going to send out an email. I'll wait a few days. Day 5, I'll send out another email. I'll wait a few more days, and then day 14, I'll send an email and I'll make a call. And you have the system. It's the same thing over and over and over. And so that's literally what you're doing. All right. So let's see. Cool. So you said, what makes you successful in the same thing that can be your downfall? Yeah, exactly. Yep, the Innovator's Dilemma book is a really good book. It literally is about that thing. What makes you successful is the same thing that brings about your downfall, unless you are literally open to bringing about your downfall. And this is why Bill Gates, like, he was known for the saying of, I'm not afraid of other companies like IBM or anything. I'm afraid of the guy in his garage with his friend building something we didn't even think about. So he was known for that. Like, he was known for saying that because he was terrified. He wasn't terrified of IBM. He saw what IBM and all these other guys were doing. And I honestly think if Bill Gates didn't leave Microsoft, there's no way in hell Apple would have beat Microsoft. Bill Gates was freaking, that dude's like on a whole new level of entrepreneurship compared to everybody else. So if he didn't leave Microsoft, Microsoft hands down would be the number one business. But that's a whole other story. But basically, it's like what Bill Gates said. He's like, I'm not afraid of IBM, Apple, all these other guys. I'm afraid of the guy in his garage creating something that we never thought about. And so that's what he was thinking about. Mark Zuckerberg, the reason why Mark Zuckerberg is so good with Facebook is because he knows the same thing. He knows that eventually there's going to be another social media platform that's going to literally destroy Facebook. And what Mark Zuckerberg has done brilliantly so far is he can see which social media platform is going to destroy Facebook, and he first tries to buy that platform. So that's why in the beginning he tried to buy Snapchat like a while ago. He tried to buy them a long ass time ago, but the Evan guy said no, and that's when Zuckerberg told Instagram, you know what, copy these mofos, let's destroy them. And that's what happened, actually. So he's doing the same thing with Facebook right now. He notices that people aren't using it as much as they used to. So he's looking to see what are people using. And that's why people are using Instagram more often. He recently started another thing that's similar to like some social media platform called TikTok or something like that. He started a duplicate of that. I guarantee you what Zuckerberg probably did, he probably approached that social media app, TikTok. He said, hey, we want to buy your company. They probably turned him down. And then he said, fine, then we'll create our own and let's just destroy them the same way we did Snapchat. And so this is why Zuckerberg is so hard to surpass him, because he already sees what's coming along. He sees the VR, the AR and all that, and he just buys it. And so that's what he's doing with his systems. So let's see, you said, all right, what do you do when you feel you're at a plateau? Like, how do you break through when you feel you reach a tipping point? Well, when you're at a plateau, when you feel stuck, it's usually because you're not doing the very next step that you know you should be doing. Very few people are stuck to a point where they just don't know anything. Like, I've yet to meet anyone who literally doesn't know what the next step is. They usually know, but what's happening is you're trying to think of the next 50 steps. You're like, okay, you're like, all right, so I'm not getting any gigs as an entertainer or as a speaker. And then you feel stuck. You know that you could cold email people. You know it, but for some reason you're not doing it. And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to think, all right, well, I mean, if I cold email people though, what am I going to say? And what if they don't respond? And then, like, how do I find the leads? You're trying to think 30, 50 steps ahead instead of just saying, all right, I know I should cold email people. All right, let me just go online. Let me type the word event, see what pops up. Let me just email them something. And then you go into Gmail or something. You're like, okay, what do I say? What subject line should I use? And you just do it. That's what I've seen when people feel stuck. That's one way to get around it. The other way is literally the mentor. The mentor thing, I used to think people said that just to get me to buy their programs. I literally used to think that. I was like, okay, sure, mentor is good or whatever. And I was like, people are just saying that just to get me to buy his stuff. But you don't realize it until you know so much more about a topic than everybody else. And when someone else tries to learn it, you see how far away they are from their goal. They think they're really close to it, but you see like, oh, this person has no idea. And you realize that if all they did was talk to you, allow you to mentor them, buy a program, whatever, if all they did was talk to you, they would speed up the process. Everyone understands this when it comes to something like becoming a doctor, right? If you're going to become a doctor, it's going to take you years, 10 years or something like that. It takes you years to become a doctor. They have all this knowledge in their head. If you try to become a doctor by yourself, if you just sat down and you're like, all right, Like, I think Leonardo da Vinci basically started out the whole thing. He was just like doing experiments and stuff, like on cadavers and everything. He's just like doing random experiments, learning all this stuff himself. And sure, he learned some stuff, but imagine if a doctor nowadays went back in time and told Leonardo da Vinci, all right, let me show you how to do it. Let me show you how this actually works. He would have instantly learned it in like a year, like probably even shorter. The dude was like a genius, kind of like me, right? So he would have learned it really fast. And so if you're stuck, it's usually because you're not doing the next thing you know you should be doing. And the other way to get around is just to literally have a mentor who can literally say, all right, you're stuck here. Here's what you do next. And here's exactly how you do it. That's the purpose of the mentor. That's the purpose of the programs and all that stuff. All right. So let's see. You said, how do you break through to a new level? You said, when you feel you're generating the same amount of sales, but are pushing for more. Who said this? I'm trying to remember exactly what they said. They said something like, it's the next level or something like that. The thing that you should be doing. Damn it, I can't remember what he said. He says something like, it's not obvious and it's counterintuitive. That's what it was. It's non-obvious and counterintuitive. This is why so many people get stuck. It's why so many people need the mentors, because the next phase that's going to take you up a notch is not obvious and it's counterintuitive. So it's like you're trying to do something, and let's say your next phase isn't to do more of that thing. Your next phase is to stop doing it altogether. And it's one of the things that's very counterintuitive. And so that's why, it's literally why the mentor is there. The mentor is like, okay, here's the next thing that you do. And they think, what? Huh? Right? And so you gotta remember that. Non-obvious and counterintuitive. So just remember those two words, non-obvious, counterintuitive. That's really how you're thinking in terms of breaking through to your next level. It's also that saying of what got you here won't get you there. And because everything you do to reach $1 million, you're doing all the work yourself. Everything you do to reach $1 million, you're doing all this stuff. To get to 10 million and 50 million, 100 million, you have to basically not do everything that you just did to reach $1 million. This is why it's so hard for entrepreneurs and people to take that next level, because you have mastered the process. You've gone into God mode. You're like, I know exactly how we get business. You've gone into God mode. Like, we do this thing. I'm doing this. You're in your obsessive compulsive mode. You know exactly what you should be doing. And then you're like, damn it, why am I stuck at $1 million in sales, right? And then all of a sudden someone says, hey, what got you here won't get you there. Instead of you doing this thing, you got to take yourself out of the business completely and say you got to hire a CEO. And that CEO, they're going to be doing the same things that you were. And at the same time, you have to do all this other stuff, right? And so you got to focus on hiring, and then you got to focus on that, right? So that's the whole saying, the counterintuitive, the non-obvious, and the whole what got you here won't get you there. That's kind of what you're really doing when you feel stuck and all that. But hands down, the biggest thing when you feel stuck is the mentor aspect. It's actually kind of funny how I used to think people just said that just get me to buy. And technically, people are saying it to get you to buy. There's hands down, no doubt about that. That doesn't mean it's not true, though. So just because someone says something just to get you to buy what they're selling, that doesn't mean that they're lying to you. And it's why when you have the mentor and the programs and all that, it helps you get unstuck, because you see what you couldn't have seen by yourself. So the doctor... The doctor who has all this information, he's talking to Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci, no matter how smart he is, he just doesn't have the right information about how the body works. Whereas the doctor has all the information. And the doctor is like, all right, bam, here you go. You're done, right? So that's how you build all your systems in your business. It's much smarter to buy systems than to build it. So just keep that in mind. All right, cool. So we are doing, once again, the Facebook Lives Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific time. So if you guys have any questions, make sure you ask the questions just 24/7, like I think I'm saying it right, Celso, just like Celso was doing. Make sure you ask questions. I will answer the questions. Cool. And then, all right, we are good to go for today. 9 a.m. Pacific time. I will see you guys tomorrow, 9 a.m. Pacific time. Take care, everybody. Adios.